Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Indiana, the show of arts, hospitality, and dropping a new menu. That's right. Today's guest is the brilliant Ryan Ehrlichman, GM of Midnight Cowboy, the esteemed cocktail bar here in Austin, Texas. And they just this week launched a new ABCs of Death themed menu. I cannot wait to go check it out this weekend. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great conversation with Ryan Ehrlichman. You threw your hands up, so I suspect.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like nowadays you really have to throw 100 darts at the board to have like a couple stick.
Really?
It's with the, and I'm just gonna chalk it up with, you know, all these people that are moving to town. Yeah. And there's so many options for people to go to different bars, restaurants, so on and so forth.
Right.
They're fresh in the city, but they don't really grasp the concept of what the service industry is and how if you ghost somebody for an interview, depending on like who you're interviewing with, it can definitely have other repercussions down the road for who else wants to hire you. Yeah. And I've definitely had a couple of people ghost me on interviews. I've had somebody even ghost me on a stage.
What?
That had a recommendation by somebody that was like a friend in the industry kind of thing.
No.
And the craziest part about it is that they worked down the street and I got a recommendation from their boss. And then they said, well, it's just too far away from my house, so I don't think I'll be able to make it.
Oh, man.
So it's just like weird. I don't know what it's, effect of, but.
Well, I think there's two things here I think it's really important that you mentioned. Well, one's a question for you, but the first is you can't do that shit in the industry. It's one thing on Tinder, right?
Yeah.
No last names. Some pictures of you 30 pounds ago, right? So it's like a totally different thing. But if they treat you poorly, and they treat me poorly, then it's going to have some repercussions, which is, to my question, I hold grudges about stuff. If people say they're going to do something and they don't do it, I do tend to put them in a column.
Yeah.
And that column is, I can't rely on you. How do you feel about these people? Does that kind of give you a similar thing?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody has their own lives. Like, if somebody ghosts me on an interview, I'm not trying to say that something may have popped up.
Sure.
At least like a text or an email would have been nice. But I'm not going to go out of my way to put this person down in the future or, put somebody in a bad box or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just know from that point on that there's no reason for me to continue any sort of, hiring process.
Right. It's not like proactively being negative. But sorry, you kind of demonstrated who you were. Probably not an option to hire in the future, right?
But I will also say that, like, myself, younger in this industry, I didn't know where it would take me on a career path.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people that use the service industry as a means to make money, but not necessarily as what they want to do professionally.
Right.
And I think those are the people that are ghosting professionals in this industry because they don't understand the repercussions.
Right. Or perhaps it's not part of the plan.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, but all right, so for you, whether I ask you to help me dig a hole or I ask you to help me build a cocktail menu, are you going to be any less committed?
No, but that's just who I am.
Yeah.
As an individual, I don't think everybody definitely has like the commitment or drive to really do what it takes to grind out like 17, 18 years of service industry.
Yeah.
And like try to eventually find their way in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to break your way into it to that kind of like professional level. So not everybody has that kind of drive.
It's true. I mean, there's varying maturity levels. And I kind of this brings up an interesting point that for you, you were pursuing what was considered the straight and narrow path, getting a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see, and we'll go back to kind of how you grew up in Indiana and stuff, but like you were focusing on graphic design, which seems like on paper it's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
But the bar and the hospitality industry kind of intersected. How did that change your perspective on your career?
Well, even while I was in college, I was always like in the service industry.
Yeah.
So it was like a way for me to make money, yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
But there became a point where my academic studies and like my interests, like I was 18 going into college, like I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
Like you said, graphic design on paper sounds like something that's just awesome. And I was sitting behind a computer all day, and it was just not anything that I was like really passionate about.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like I got into bartending. So like I started bartending at Maggiano's Little Italy.
Oh yeah.
At Keystone of the Crossing in Indianapolis, and I was making like decent money for a college kid, then traveling back up to Muncie, Indiana. And it's just like, is it really worth my time, to pursue something and spend a whole bunch of money that I don't have on a degree versus making a whole bunch of money now?
Yeah.
And when you're 21, like money's always going to be,
it takes,
key.
Cash is king, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was, that was probably like the main drive. Plus I was having a lot of fun. I had like zero living expenses.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like really, it was more about being a fuckboy, I guess, at that point.
So, sometimes, and this has become more recurrent for me and for folks I've been interviewing, but there's almost always some kind of thread of hospitality in our folks or in our family.
Mm-hmm.
So, you mentioned before recording your folks' club and stuff, but in their careers, what were they doing?
I mean, my mother had been a long time career nurse.
That's my mom too, yeah.
So she started out in the psychiatric ward and did that her entire career.
Yeah, psych nurse, right?
Exactly. Yeah, she was the admitting RN to all the psychiatric part of the hospital that she worked at.
Yeah.
My dad was in advertising earlier on in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Was very famous, didn't like it, ended up going into import-export.
No kidding.
Created his own company. Didn't do too well, but it was just one of those things where he followed his passion and ended up where he was. So that was cool. But honestly, there was zero industry thread in my entire, lineage, I guess I would say.
But yeah, right. Maybe not literally. But,
okay.
But nurses,
Mm-hmm.
my mom, never have I met anybody that was more willing to take care of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a cocktail waitress for a short period of time, but ultimately went to pay for nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about that, us learning to care for other people, because in essence, isn't that what hospitality is?
It is. And I mean, it's something that may be in your blood, where you can have this vision of my mother, and I say, hey, she was just out there taking care of everybody, gave everything to everyone, and just kind of looked at herself last. And I'm just like, wow, that's my mom kind of thing. So it was really pretty interesting. And now that you made this correlation, I'm thinking about it a little bit more.
Dude, I know, because it took me years to I wouldn't say I cracked it, but it certainly wasn't a bad connection to make, that I care for people and take care of them like my mom took care, and she still does.
Yeah.
Loves animal. There's something to that. I had an experience. I was out with a friend the other day, and we went to an undisclosed hotel bar to have just a drink and hang out. And it was okay for me, drink aside, but the service was just, and this was visually a man who'd been in the industry for quite some time. Normally I don't talk about industry stuff as much, but I think that this was important because we brought it up last time we talked. But anyway, he was just he didn't want to be there. And so we started talking about the logistics of being a bartender.
Oh, man.
And is it, this is not to reduce anybody.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult is it really to be a bartender and to be nice to people?
I mean, it really just depends on your day.
Yeah.
I guess, being a bartender and being raised in the way that I was in this industry, it was always you give everybody everything. You know what I mean? And I don't care if you had a bad day, you leave it at the door, you strap a smile on your face, and you give people, it's your escape from the world. And I think it's hard for people to break that mental barrier of, this is my work and this is what I have to do, as opposed to bringing everything else that comes from outside into your work.
When it's really a role.
Exactly. It's very much like acting in a way. You know, you got to kind of, you know, if you don't like it, fake it till you make it kind of thing. So, yeah.
What do you tell your staff at Cowboy when they're having those kinds of days where they're not maybe real engaged?
Well, the thing that I guess I have to start people off like in the interview.
Yeah.
Before I even bring people on, I don't even let it get until people are like actually fully onboarded. I say, hey, whatever you do, it's about this space, and this space is our like 4 walls that we really have to protect. And if you bring any of that negative energy in here, like you're going to cause all of these dominoes to like fall.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like this is
it's an ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, same thing with culture.
Sure.
It's like if you have that one bad seed, it can ruin this culture that you built up from years of like having people around you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's something that you have to start, I think, as a manager very early on into bringing bartenders into your space. Yeah.
When it comes to health for you personally and mental health, being a GM can't be easy. I mean, I know damn well it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I know that company's a great company. Tastes a good friend and stuff. So I understand kind of that what's going on. Not to mention you guys have such an ambitious menu too.
True.
Aesthetically, which you must like as a graphic designer, which we'll touch on. But what do you do for you once you get out of there?
Oh man, mostly I like to chill on my couch and like cuddle my dog. You know, it's like it's the same thing with like I think myself as like an extroverted introvert. Like I give pretty much 100% of my extroversion into when I'm in that space. Maybe a little bit of my introversion into like, you know, passively telling my other managers to tell people to do things and kind of hype them up. But like all of my introversion comes like out when I go home.
Yeah.
Watching movies. I went fishing the other day.
Really? Where'd you go fishing?
Well, my housing development actually butts up next to McKinney Falls and Onion Creek.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So we went back in Onion Creek and had a really good time. Just went fishing, drank some beers. So
it's not a bad way to do it.
Yeah. Going out visiting other friends at other bars is always a fun pastime of mine. But it's I think as a creative, like all of my, I guess, extraneous kind of like ambitions into different things, I always like to spend time doing like something and like be good at it and then move on to the next thing.
Dude, it's so strange because it's the same thing for me. There's a few exceptions that really require maybe lifelong dedication or really long-term stuff. But when it comes to spirits, for instance, I'll just focus on a certain category for months. Then done.
Yeah.
And then I learned everything, read everything I could, on to the next one. And it's kind of an interesting, I'm going to call it compartmentalization.
Yeah. That's a really good.
Do you have a good capacity to do that?
I mean, if you have time to let me tell you about all my hobbies that I've had in the past, one was herpetology.
What is that?
Just reptiles and amphibians. Like,
oh wow!
I would keep snakes and I would grow them to like breeder size, and then I would like trade them into like reptile breeders like get the next new snake that I was like really into, kind of thing.
Okay.
I was a tattoo artist for like 4 years.
Really?
Yeah. I basically, drawing. I did murals for a while, like painting with acrylics and all sorts of other multi-mixed media arts and things like that. So
okay, that's 3. I just want to fancy a guess to the next one, but I think it's gonna be completely inaccurate. So give me a 4th.
I mean, spirits is one of them. Wine? I got my level 1 Somm back when I was in like 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like all sorts of like weird things, and sometimes like I'll jumble them up and around and stuff like that. But like you said, you go in spurts.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you said, 3 months. Sometimes it's like 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I think you just got to put your all into everything that you study outside of work to really get your head outside of work.
Yeah, man, I could not agree more.
Fishing was the other one. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So, this is incredible because it's this rich tapestry of hobbies and interests. Do you like to travel?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I try to make it a point to go to a new country every year.
Yeah, that's great.
Last year I went to Belize. The year before that I was in Panama or Peru and Colombia. Man. Yeah. So,
any areas of the world that you've yet to discover that you really, really want to go to?
I've really traveled, North and South America and like the Caribbean and everything like that. I think my next like venture will be Southeast Asia / Japan.
Yeah.
And then maybe move my way down and then hit Europe later in life because that's always going to be there.
I don't know if the Brexit stuff, how that's going to work out.
Oh, okay.
But some parts of it
will
be there. But no, it's such an interesting thing to just kind of set your sights on that. Do you consider yourself an ambitious person? Do you make goals, measurable goals and things for yourself?
Not set in stone or anything that, but I do have ambitions. Believe it or not, before I moved out here, I applied for the position that Tacey had taken as the GM at Midnight Cowboy from Indianapolis. And I was like, I really want to work at that bar. Yeah. And got here, did my due diligence to know the people that I had to meet to like get in.
Yeah.
Worked my ass off, ended up becoming a GM, and then just was like, I really just want to be the GM at this bar. So who knows where that's going to take me after this role, but I think I wouldn't be happy leaving this role until I was happy with everything that I did in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's just like one of those things where I always am my own harshest critic, where like, if I think I'm doing a good job, I'm already like 2 steps behind.
Right.
So like it's thinking that like 3 or 4 steps ahead to get me to where I feel comfortable. So.
And it's funny too, is talking about the Spanish thing, and I beat myself up when I can't understand a language that's on a show and they're speaking like so fast.
Oh yeah.
But then the point is that we're not being pessimistic, because that's different, right? Yeah. Pessimism is like, oh, I can't do this, and we're almost on the other end of it where it's over optimism, where it's like I should be doing better, I should be doing more, and that's why we never stop. And I say that because I say we, both because we're men, we have beards, and we're Aquarians. That's what the we.
It's a really good correlation. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah. And I wear glasses typically, but I'm wearing contacts right now, so
cool.
There's that too. So this story, though, much like my dad, I visited small town Indiana later in life when he kind of took us back there. And you are a kid growing up in Indianapolis, but then you said your folks split. You're spending some time in Tennessee. Was there ever a chance you were going to end up in, or you said Nashville, rather?
Nashville, yeah.
Was there any chance you were going to end up in Nashville?
I definitely thought about it.
Because you're kind of how old at this point?
I'm 33 right now.
So at that point, though, when your folks split, you're really young?
Yeah, I was 8. So like from 8 to 18, I spent all my summers in Tennessee, Nashville, just going back and forth, doing the whole thing. And it was fun hanging out with my dad. We had a boat. We'd go on the lake. We'd go downtown, do the whole 9 yards. But I was really too young to really understand, like, my service industry, like, I guess, what I was going to get into later.
Yeah.
Like, 14, I started working at a pizzeria, like, in Indianapolis, just because my mom said, if you want a cell phone, go buy it.
Yes.
So, like, I was one of the first kids in my school that had a job and, like, paid for my own cell phone at, like, 14.
That's amazing.
So... It's one of those things where I really just didn't know. Nashville now is absolutely amazing.
Killer spot.
Yeah. Even when I was like going back and forth, like it was building so much up on itself. It used to be a whole lot smaller. Now I compare it to like a southern version of Indianapolis.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize. I've just heard great things about it, but I haven't been back in quite some time. So though this, you'd mentioned that you don't have an ear for music.
No.
Or an ear for art. But you have an eye for it.
Yeah.
What kinds of things were kind of influencing you visually? Maybe they were filmmakers, maybe they were artists that said, oh, maybe I'll push into the graphic design area.
Back then I was really into graffiti. There was one book that I had that was called Black Ink That was about this guy that would travel around and do just like straight black and white murals / things, and he would do also like graffiti work in like random areas around the world.
Wow.
Which was really cool. I mean, of course, like Banksy was like one of those guys that like really influenced me.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly like street art and that like kind of graffiti.
Just kind of organic and like from the people kind of thing.
Yeah, and a little bit more like visceral. You know what I mean? I think anything that was like big, bold colors, like straight edge lines, things like that. That's why like when I got into tattoo art, I was like very into like New Age American traditional, where you would have those like big, bold lines, and then you would have like this very sharp color.
Yeah.
And I think it's the contrast that really like
high contrast
kind of stuff that really pulled my eye early on, and also like sharp edges, things like that.
Really?
Especially when you play with like, I don't know, like the geometry of like walls, and if you were going to paint on like certain, you know, medium, and like see what angles you're actually playing off of to create these like visual distractions kind of things.
Well, playing
and,
with 3D, really.
Exactly,
right?
like playing with 3D with 2D art.
Yeah.
Is like something that like really kind of got to me. Where if you like look at something from one angle, it looks like something completely different when you like walk around it.
Yeah.
Is like the stuff that really kind of got to me.
Well, it's always lovely to challenge people's perceptions.
Oh yeah.
You know, and in that case, it's really, really challenging their physical perceptions.
Well, I mean, I think that's the same thing like we do, or you know, in the industry. It's like people always like expect okay. You know what I mean? It's like if you hit this line of okay, then I'm not going to complain, and I'll probably be back at some point or another. Right. If you hit like less than okay, like obviously I might write a review, and I might be back if you tell me like you're working on what I'm complaining about. Yeah. If you hit excellent, like people are always going to be so hyped and like tell everybody. Yeah. You know. It's,
they're a PR mechanism at that point.
Yeah, but
you
also
don't have to pay them. It's nice.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, if you have like below okay, then that one person will tell 100 people about how terrible their experience is. Where that one person that has this excellent experience tells 3 people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's the focus on negativity and stuff. You know, and I think this comes back to, man, I'm sure this theme's going to kind of keep repeating itself, but self-centeredness, you know, self-fulfilling egos and things like that. And I think that's kind of comes into play. Like, man, do you hear what this guy did? Hear what this person did? And it's like, oh, I can go skip this interview because I got better things to do. Yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting thing.
Well, I mean, if you want to circle back to that whole ego thing, like, egos are something that are best left for somewhere outside of your workplace. Like, you can be very passionate about who you are as a person, but I could care less if that comes into us actually executing something for our guests. And it's like I always say all the time, like, just because you work here, it doesn't make you a badass. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's like you can be a badass. Like, I'm okay with that, but your title here doesn't make you a badass. It's what you do while you're here that will eventually make you a badass somewhere. Yeah. So
it's an interesting thing. I mean, just building the culture and building people and learning how to be a manager and learning what your style is and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, one of the things I thought was an interesting intersection, and we'll talk about the move to Austin here because I'm curious as to what brought you here. Yeah. But there's a friend that we have in common who is also from Indianapolis. And in fact, you guys even... This is cool when you go back and look at the information, because I've researched Ruby separately. I had a chat with him and need to catch up with him soon. And I've researched you. And then all of a sudden, and we're drinking rum, but there's this rum competition. And you both are in this picture together. And I'm like, yeah. Oh, shit, I know both these guys before they were Austin big. So did you guys hang out? Were you mates in the Indianapolis scene or just acquaintances?
Just acquaintances. Actually, that was like one of the first times that I'd actually hung out with Ruby was at that competition. And then afterwards, of course.
Yeah, right.
But he mostly did a lot of his stuff in Kokomo, which is like just north Indianapolis area. And I mainly was like downtown at the time. I had heard about him. He was heavy into the USBG and stuff like that. But like our paths had never crossed before that.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. whole interest in moving here was because Indianapolis is what it is, and I felt like if I was going to increase myself as a person in this industry, I needed to learn more than just what was in my bubble.
Sure.
So I needed to go somewhere and learn how somebody else did something, even though I thought this was the way it should be done, but start out as like a blank slate.
Wow. That's mature, man.
Yeah, well, I mean,
about it. That's selfless.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like to. I guess I'm humble enough.
Look at you know what I mean? I get it, right? If I pay you any compliment, you're gonna deflect. I get it. That's how I do this shit.
Yeah, so, it is what it is.
But in all reality, it takes someone pretty focused and clear-minded to say, I don't know it all, so let's go and start from scratch and learn something new.
But I think that's the thing that I've done, like, in my entire career is, like, the way that I always position myself into situations was to try to learn an aspect that I was not 100% sure of or not really good at.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, the growth that I think a lot of people should take in this industry is to try to focus on their weaknesses to, you know, maybe increase their strengths.
Dude, yeah.
So that's what that was. I mean, Ruby ended up moving here with Russell to open academia.
That's right, yeah.
So it was just like...
a couple other folks, too, if I recall. He kind of was plucking people from across.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's funny. I was in a conversation with Stephen White from Seven Grand, and I was like, you know, us Midwest guys, we just work hard.
Yeah.
And it's like the work ethic is like there. You tell me to do something, like we'll do it. He was even brought... you know, old reference back to when he was in the military of like all of his best like comrades and people that he worked with in the military were all from the Midwest because you like tell them to do something. There no questions asked. You just do it, you know? It's I guess it's just in our blood.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird that I like moving stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, because I can just put my head down and do the thing. Right? I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just like, this needs to go from here to here. So for me, it's like the simplest way to just get the work done. You know, as you get older and in different kinds of positions of leadership, potentially, maybe starting your own brand, all that kind of stuff, then that work changes, but you never lose that. You know, I love sweeping.
Really?
That is one of my favorite, and I don't think a lot of people know this about me. I love sweeping because I can just put my earphones in and just sweep.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm trying to do is get something from one point to the other point. You know, it's something very, very medicinal about it.
I got a great reference for you when it comes to that. Is I was training this new bartender, and I was like, okay, now we got to sweep behind the bar, and he's like, you know, going hard. He's like sweeping everything.
Yeah,
and I'm like, he's like, can you tell I was a hockey player? I'm like, okay, cool. But then I was like, let me grab this broom from you and let me show you like what I'm actually looking for. And like medicinally, just put my head down, go under everything, just as thorough as I possibly can. And I pull out probably a whole dustpan's worth of stuff. I was like, can you tell I was in the kitchen before? And he was like, oh, okay, touche.
Yeah.
So from that point on, he was always like getting under stuff and stuff like that.
There's something about that work, you know, and building and using your hands. It's just the absence of all this other stuff that's making life a little more complicated.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes you just need a disconnect even while you're doing work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
moving to Austin is a challenge because did you know anybody here? Because you said, I guess Ruby moved after you did.
My buddy Scott had moved here, who had worked with me previously at Plat 99 in Indianapolis. He had also moved to like Louisville and Chicago before he moved here. He's kind of bouncing all around.
Yeah.
But then my sister lives here or lives in Round Rock.
No kidding.
She had moved here to work for a tech company about 5 years ago.
Wow.
And she said, hey, if you're really talking about leaving Indianapolis, because I was thinking like New Orleans, I was definitely thinking Austin. I had a couple of other places in mind, but I wasn't really exactly sure. She was like, if you want to move here, you know, let me know and you can stay with me for a little bit until you get your feet under you. I was like, that sounds like I can actually move up this process like 6 months.
Yeah.
And why not? So it worked out pretty perfectly.
You guys pretty close? You and your sister?
Yeah, pretty close.
You have some other siblings too? Or just...
I mean, I have like an older half-sister and half-brother. They live in St. Louis, but she's my immediate sister, I guess I should say. But yeah, I mean, we're close enough in the way of siblings that can hang out for like 2 or 3 days at a time.
That's
kind of
about
thing.
a good chunk, yeah.
Yeah.
My brother and I are about good for 2-3 days.
And it's like, you're great because you haven't seen each other for a while. You hang out, and then all of a sudden, 3 days later, you start picking at like the insecurities or like imperfections at each other, and you're like, oh shit, I best just go, kind of thing.
Maybe that's one of the beauties of having siblings,
Yeah.
What was the point then? Being in Austin, you have a little bit of it's always good to have family for one.
Oh, for sure.
But what was the point where you realized I want to stay here? I want to see what this is really all about.
I mean, I still have that like thing going on like all the time.
How many years now?
Just over 2.
Okay.
So yeah, it would be June would be my 2-year mark.
Okay.
So I think the thing that has kept me here is the constant challenge. Also learning something new about the industry in this city.
Yeah.
Building the relationships, because I've found out that this city has such a tight-knit like bar community and like family of people that are just like very supportive of each other, which I'm not going to say I didn't have in Indianapolis, but it wasn't to the same extent.
Texas hospitality is different, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do have a reputation for that, and it's well deserved, I think.
Mm-hmm.
At least I can attest to Dallas or Houston, but I could presume the same things. But Austin, if you need something, if you need to talk, if you need to have coffee and talk about a business idea, if you need mentorship, I think it's all really there, and it's very, very open. And you got some great figures here that have been doing it so long.
And that's something that I've been starting to latch on to, is all of, I guess I would say mentors or people that I look up to in this industry that have like very good insight, on this, community as what Austin is.
Right.
Which can go a very long way. And I think it's the same thing with when I talk about like, hey, I came here to learn something new. It's like you can't just like be stuck in your old mind frame. You got to really be able to be open to listen to people that know about what they're talking about. So anybody
that comes, I'll tell you what, I'll share something. So when I first started making gin in 2012, this is when we finally came out with some gins, like the 4th in Texas at that time, which is crazy. I wasn't that old, I promise. I wasn't that old. But, but I considered everybody that was making a gin in Texas was like competition. Right? Now, whether this is right or not.
No,
this is where I was coming from at that point.
Totally understand.
And I think 31. I was like 31. Right?
Okay.
I'm 39 now, so it's quite a while ago. And I met this guy. I heard about this guy. He was working for this brand called Aviation Gin. And, I'll tell you what, he doesn't know this. And I see him a lot. And he's been so very supportive. I really, really appreciate Tober. Not as a bartender, but as a businessman and as a man. Yeah. But there was this point where I kept saying like, oh man, competition, this and that, And he goes, hey, look, man, we're all in this together. It's not a competition. Yeah. And like, that was a changing point for me. And it just took 2 sentences or 2 independent clauses in this case, right? That shifted everything for me. Yeah. And so every now and again, when we're on the up and up and we're learning and we're growing and we're maturing and we're meeting all these people, someone says something so succinctly insightful that it's like, fuck, you're right. And that's maybe one of the things I love about this community, is that there's always somebody that can teach you something, if not something about yourself.
Yeah.
And in this short 2 years, which could be a long 10 years, could be who knows.
Yeah.
Have you grown a bit since you've been here?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the things that I've learned from the people that have been around, I've learned a lot. I can't compartmentalize into like each specific thing that I learned.
Oh, it's just like this general thing, right? Yeah.
Like it's like a cloud. Like somebody tells you something, I just upload it in my brain to the cloud, and like all of a sudden it's like there forever, and it's never going away.
What is it all? Much like a palette of paint. It's blending all those paints together, and you still have a color. Yeah. But it's composed of all these individual things, and it grows like a cloud or like a snowball.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that I always looked at things is like, you can tell me this and I'll keep it here, But if somebody tells me something that might be different or better or just, unique, I'm still going to like listen to all those and rationalize it in my head to make my best judgment of the way that I should, move forward with whatever you're telling me.
Yeah.
It's a major detriment to like hear something from one person and one perspective as a person to just like regurgitate it on everybody else.
What's that word? Monolithic? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Like it's just a singular vision or singular point of view in a world of gray, black, and white, right?
Yeah.
In other words, there are more than two sides.
Yeah, it's like if somebody says, I look at the world in gray, I'm like, well, I look at it in black, white, and gray. I mean, that's cool. You can live there, but like it doesn't mean that you're getting everybody's perspective.
Yeah.
So it's good to be open-minded, I guess is the best way to say that.
I think so too. There's no way to grow unless you're willing to learn.
Exactly. And I mean, growth has to come from, like you said earlier, from within, and being humble enough to know that, I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How could we?
Yeah. There's this great Jimi Hendrix quote that I always go back to, and it's knowledge is to speak, wisdom is to listen.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, if you want to tell me, like, cool, like you have knowledge, I want to soak this up, but I'm trying to be wise about this and the way that I can kind of regurgitate this to the rest of the people that might be listening to me later.
Yeah. No, it's a very good. It's nice to treat it with some responsibility and some reverence.
Truth.
Because you as a leader have a bar staff. If I say something stupid, however many people listen to the podcast, I don't care about making a joke. I make stupid jokes all the fucking time. But if I have a profound misunderstanding about something, it is my responsibility to just listen very carefully. Because we were talking about agave stuff earlier. Mm-hmm. That's a really specific category that has no rules and is boundless, but...
Yeah, let's talk about rum.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and we're drinking this Peruvian rum. It's the only Peruvian rum. What do you think about this, by the way?
It's got this great kind of mellow balance to it, and it's not super funky, but it does have some of this, like, I don't know...
Dude, I'm trying... I know exactly.
It's almost like a sherry finish or like some sort of like X wine kind of finish to it,
Yeah. It is kind of... You're right. It's not grapey, but it's... portish, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's almost mushroomy.
Yeah. It's got some sort of must, but it's not like dunder funk. It's like, it's
lowbrow mineral funk instead of that funky acidic funk. This is, it was, and I don't even get the details right because that's what I have to do on the podcast. That's a great part, right? But like Slovenian oak, I don't know what that is.
Hell, neither do I.
Is that different than Slovakian oak? I don't know. This is all new territory for me.
I'm of my geographical, knowledge. I think the Eastern European countries are the ones that kind of fall short.
That's right. It's a little hard. Macedonia, is that still a thing?
I hope so.
I do.
I don't want to discount the Macedonians.
So this latest chapter, and I was just in Cowboy this weekend talking to Drew. You guys have done a really cool concept having that patio out there.
Yeah, thank you.
And it gets better as the seasons get better, of course, because Texas is god awful when it comes to heat. But this is the thing, and I've seen it grown. And I remember I was there the first week, like it was an event. Cowboy opened. It was a staff. I always call it the dream team of the cocktail. But you guys are really, really busy all of the time now.
Yeah, on the weekends especially. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it fills up the day of, if not a week or two before.
Yeah.
Which is great. And I think it's just a testament to the way that we really treat guest experience.
Yeah.
So
someone comes in there, someone you've never met, and you and your staff are aligned on some principles. What is it that you want that person to feel when they come in and sit down?
At least listen to. Even if it doesn't align with like the values of our, guest experience or service standards or something like that,
right,
we can at least listen. And I think that's something that like we had spoken on earlier is like people want to be heard.
Yeah.
If you listen and then you calmly explain like this is why we do things and it's aligned this way so that you can have the best experience, I want to say 99% of the time, they're like, okay, cool. Like, show me what you do. And then if we don't absolutely blow them away by what we do, the way that we do it, then we can probably look at tweaking our standards in some other way.
Yeah.
But I think everything has been streamlined in a way to like really maximize like guest experience and service standards and timing.
Yeah.
Which is a very large part about having timed reservations.
So that you can ensure consistency and quality in a timely manner.
Exactly. I mean, imagine if your reservation ends in 5 minutes and then we have a round of drinks that are still being made right now. Are you going to be elated to get your drinks and then be rushed out to the patio because somebody has to take that seat right after you?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like making sure that the experience is there. So.
And the menu, which this is the second utterance, I believe, the second full travel around the world kind of bit.
The passport,
which is, you know, sometimes people can be too clever with shit, you know, with menu concepts and stuff, and it's like, okay, I get it, you know, but I was there with my wonderful partner, and she's like, I like this, and I was like, okay, I like it too, because it's a really interesting concept, and you guys are, I mean, I don't know, I could give you too much credit because you can't take a compliment, but there's a lot of interesting flavors on there, stuff I would have not ever thought about, and that is a brainchild of the staff, mostly you, less you, everybody.
It's the staff, and I think the real reason that people want to work at Cowboy is to gain some sort of insight on how to build quality cocktails, but do it as extravagantly and as flavorfully as possible.
Yeah.
And the whole creation aspect, I think, is what drives craft cocktail bartenders. But the grind is the part that kind of weeds out craft cocktail bartenders in the same right. So there are many other ways that I've been trying to get like our bartenders involved, like in the community, to like take their mind off of the day-to-day grind, so that when it does come time to create these new cocktails, they're like giving it 110% and like really thinking off the wall about all these other flavors that they can use and introduce, you know, to a new menu. So
I'll tell you what, and I know it's a cocktail that's been around. I'm not exactly sure of the origin, but London Calling is one of my favorite record, but also one of my favorite drinks. The sherry gin and I mean, this is really something. But it's just one of the many. There's a turmeric drink that's got golden honey in it, I think.
Turmeric infused Dolin Blanc with yellow chartreuse and Pierre Ferrand's dry curacao. Just
really nice and kind of enormity of flavors. You can kind of get whatever you're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I think creating a balanced menu is like hitting all aspects of the palate. It's like if you have 16 cocktails on a menu, there's got to be something on there for everybody.
Yeah.
I know when I was younger in the craft world, I was just like, I only want to build stirred cocktails. I was like, this is my jam. This is something that like I really want to just focus on. Then I realized that only 25% of the people going into my bar wanted stirred cocktails. Like they wanted shaken, what have you. And I mean, working with Tasian in Austin and like all of these other influence that I've had from the different bars that I've been to, really getting that diverse knowledge of like flavor palette and like what people are actually looking for in this market has really grown me as a bartender a lot.
Interesting. For sure. Doing things for other people instead of yourself. I think that's a big lesson, right?
I mean, I really refused to build gin cocktails for the longest time.
Really?
Gin was like probably my least favorite spirit category. Excluding vodka, but that's like a whole nother story.
Well, neutrality, right?
Yeah, when it comes to like building cocktails.
Yeah.
But then I had to like challenge myself into building gin cocktails, and I was like, okay, I can do this. You know, it's not outside of my wheelhouse now, and I think it's reaching for those bottles that you wouldn't normally reach for as a bartender, and finding a way to make these flavors work is really what grows bartenders into being creative.
I love that.
So,
Did you ever watch Chopped?
I have seen a couple of episodes, yeah.
The most amount of inspiration I've got for cocktail combos in the past couple years is from Chopped.
Interesting.
Because you're forced to use sour cream and then halibut. You know, it's some stupid, preposterous combination.
Yeah.
But then if you're like, well, if I sear the skin and then get some oil, I've got this salty, you know, and then I can use that with the fat. And like, Cocktails. Now, I don't think chefs make good mixologists. I say that, and let me say that.
Okay.
I think that that's true.
No.
It really is true. But I think that people that make cocktails and bartenders have to think like chefs.
Truth. And if you look at our menu, a lot of our menu is culinary driven.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas I get all of my inspiration from chefs, like you were just saying on Chopped. Mine is more of like I have to be immersed in these flavors. Like I have to like try it
Yeah.
for it to like make sense in my brain. For instance, I had it was a chicken liver mousse with a beet puree and a peach jam with like a churro on top with cocoa powder.
Smart.
The texture, yeah. So it's just like trying to incorporate things that would like actually work with this dish.
Yeah.
Would be, if I was still working in restaurant bars, I'd be like, hey chef, what's your new thing, and let me see if I can find a way to complement this dish the best I can.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to hint on your whole like chefs being mixologists. They also don't like being one-upped by their bar program. So
True.
And I'll say this, as far as like craft bartenders, things like that, we really are just trying to gain knowledge of flavor profile and things like that. And chefs should be that inspiration to the bartenders, you know, instead of like subcategorizing them into like a different, you know.
It's a different strata or part of the hierarchy. That's
Exactly.
foolish. It's just as lucrative now too.
Exactly. So it's like if your bar program's making just as much as your culinary program, I mean,
Why be?
you could just elevate this and still make more money.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
But yeah.
Yeah, there was one. So one, like, I'm gonna say it, but Bobby Flay, I don't care what kind of pop cook he is or whatever. The dude just works, right? You know what I mean? Like he just puts his head down and he works. Now he does the hosting thing, and I think that's actually smart brand diversification, whatever. But this is how I knew something as simple as this that I thought was brilliant, right? So he's making a Cubano sandwich. So roasted pork in this case, nice bun, pickles.
Mm-hmm.
He used Swiss cheese, but I think the other person used Gruyere, whatever. That's fine. So, but mustard, right? Okay. So people are thinking, oh yeah, you put mustard on it. It's like, oh, yeah, so you put mustard. Yeah, well, what kind? Oh, just the yellow kind. Like, are you sure? Yeah. So he mixes whole grain with Dijon. So you get texture, punch, wine, and I'm like, this is the dumbest possible thing I could be fixating on right now. But that kind of simplistic combination of flavors is what pushes flavor through the roof. And
Truth.
That's the thing, man, because it's not some crazy sous vide thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just like a pinch of this, a pinch of that.
Well, it's the same thing when it comes down to all these new like bar devices that people are using that have been in the culinary world. Oh yeah, was it?
Well, no, you're doing the air quotes so no one can see it. I'm like,
oh yeah, okay,
this is important.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
These bar tools.
Oh yeah, like using a sous vide to make syrups now, using a centrifuge for all these things. Mm-hmm. Like at Midnight Cowboy, all we have is like an induction burner. Like we have a sous vide, but we never use it unless we like absolutely have to. Yeah. Like it's just like using the minimalist kind of tools. You can still execute the same flavors. Absolutely. It's like you don't need to spend $1 million on all these like really cool chef tools to like create flavor. Mm-hmm. You can use an induction burner and a juicer, and that's like all we have.
And what better tool does anybody have than one, their head,
mm-hmm.
their brain, their experience, and two, their heart and their passion.
Truth.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
If you know how to taste and you've been there before and you really love it, the result will inevitably always be good.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing when chefs pour passion into their food and bartenders do it into their cocktails. And I think there was this blind surveyor like competition that somebody had done years ago. But I just remember this because they said, I don't want to see who made the cocktail. But I'm going to put this bartender that came in real shitty and like didn't have their head on straight, mm-hmm. make me a daiquiri. And then I want this bartender that's like super happy to make me a daiquiri.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to taste them side by side and see which one gives me, even though they're the same specs, the same builds, which one gives me the response that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
100% of the time, it was always the guy that like was happy to make a daiquiri.
Yep.
Was the one that like, and you can see it when people drink, people that are happy to serve them. You know what I mean? So,
Dude, it automatically makes the experience better.
truth.
And it's a nice bias, to be honest.
Mhm.
Bias is the experience. I think that's a positive thing. So it took you guys a long time, and I think rightfully so, for the first iteration of the menu. The second now is Passport, as you shake your head.
I think I cried on that first launch.
Yeah.
Like the bar flip, I definitely like went home like with tears in my eyes. It was just like so strenuous.
Oh,
But,
man.
yeah,
I can't imagine.
It was all right. I survived.
Well, you always will survive.
Well,
That's how.
sometimes you feel like you're not in the
Yeah,
moment.
but
So
you're gonna survive.
yeah, I
this
get
is
it.
how it works. Even if you're dragging your feet across the room, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What's next for Midnight Cowboy? This menu is relatively new, right? Was it for spring or was it summer?
The passport menu?
Yeah,
passport menu we launched December last year.
Okay.
And we should be launching the new menu either October or November of this year.
Oh wow.
It's going to be the Field Guide to Evil.
What?
It's really a pretty cool concept. So 2 years ago, South by Alamo, in conjunction with 8 different directors, created this series of short stories called The Field Guide to Evil. It was the follow-up to the ABCs of Death.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, yeah.
So it was like 8 directors from 8 different regions around the world telling short stories about different folklore and legends from each region.
Yeah.
Our menu is going to be based off of a good cocktail from each short story and a evil cocktail from each short story.
Protagonist, antagonist?
And there will be a little write-up about each one of the short films on each page with each of the cocktails. It will also be launched on streaming media with the release of our menu.
Oh,
so
that's clever.
when we drop our menu, Alamo will release it on streaming media, and then boom. And then you can either watch the short stories, come in and get a drink, or get a drink and then go home and Netflix and chill.
Wow.
I don't want to quote Netflix, but
No, I
it
didn't
might
get-
be another, media source.
That's really, really cool. And because I'm a massive horror fan too.
Me too.
Yeah. Did you see these posters I have in the living room? We'll have to look at them again when we go in there, but
I'm down.
it's becoming the best part of the year in the fall, man. This is when I love to be around and weather and everything. So I got one question left for you.
Yeah, what's up?
And this one, I ask all my guests this. Actually, I just was listening back. I interviewed Ron Cooper, and I put that out this past week.
I
And
saw that.
amazing experience, but I forgot to ask him this question.
Oh, okay.
God damn it. This is the only time.
I'm kind of nervous now.
No, it's an easy question, but I don't know how you would answer it.
Yeah.
So you're at Midnight Cowboy. You're enjoying your favorite cocktail off the new menu. This is all just hypothetical, right? And you can have a conversation and a drink with anybody living or deceased. You and that person in that bar, who would you love to sit down and have a drink with?
It's a really good question. I mean, if you say living and deceased,
It
that's
makes it
just
tough,
opens it up to a whole other element. I guess if we were going to make this driven about, our industry,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to sit down with Sasha Petrosky. He was a gentleman that I was never able to meet, but also had a lot of influence all over, the United States and the world.
Yeah.
So I feel like his, tutelage could really give me a head up, as far as what I want out of this career / what I can get out of this career and how I need to do it.
Yeah.
So
It's been really interesting interviewing lots of people that knew him, and I've built the visage of the man in my head based on the other words of people that were with him, romantically, and people that were working alongside him. And I think that's good, man. He's got that beautiful drawing and art piece of the Roosevelt Room and stuff, and lives on.
Well, I think it's me as a person, the one thing that I'd want to get out of my life is to have what I've learned or what impact I've made in my life live on. So it's basically your form of being immortal. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
like, I don't want my time on this earth to be forgotten after I've gone. So
Completely understand.
that's, I guess, my main driving factor in everything that I do to make myself the best person I can be is to, have people, when they look back at my life, say that I made an impact.
Yeah.
So
I'm exactly there with you. One other caveat is that I just want to make sure people want to have a drink with me. Best barometer of success.
exactly.
So, Ryan, it's been brilliant getting to know you finally.
No, absolutely.
Checking, man.
Yeah.
It's been good sipping rum. We're going to go shoot some, high def video now, and I'm going to put my makeup on and we're going to get this thing done.
Oh, yeah?
So I'll chat
You
soon.
gonna get all dolled up for me?
I mean, I shaved my neck today. How's that?
Oh, you look beautiful.
Thanks, Dean. Talk soon.
Yeah, cheers.
So what do you guys think, Mr. Ryan Ehrlichman, the GM of Midnight Cowboy Bar here in Austin, Texas? A reasonable guy, a smart guy, a pensive guy, an Aquarius? Now, I know I go on and on about this, but we are so easy to get along with. I'm just telling you. So why don't you go visit Ryan over there at Midnight Cowboy? Check out the new menu. I hear it's miraculous, beautiful, and delicious. I can't wait to check it out myself. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how little attention you're paying to Lair of the White Worm as it is on Amazon Prime, or if you're thinking, I'm not sure if I can watch any more horror movies this month, please keep dancing.